Job interviews. We all know about the infamous job interview. You go there, it's the initiation. It's kind of like frats. You know how frats, pledge and do all that weird stuff in order to get into a frat? Hey, that's all I'm going to say on that. Basically, got to do the same thing for a job. What I mean by that is you go through an interview. Even though some jobs really shouldn't require an interview because they're so hurting for people, that's the way it is, right? Like, bro, I be seeing help wanted signs everywhere. So I be so confused on how some people don't have jobs or some people get denied from jobs. Now, granted, some of the unemployed people aren't really even putting in much effort. But when I hear about a dude getting denied from like Arby's or Wendy's because they weren't a good fit, I kind of get a side eye like, okay, buddy. But the first topic that we should honestly get into when we talk about jobs is dressing to impress. It doesn't matter if you're going for a job at the dumpster, you still gotta have on some type of fashion, statement. Whether it's a 3-piece suit, whether it's just a straight up button up shirt, some slacks, some khakis, all that dressing up just to be in a uniform. Now, granted, I understand dressing for an interview is a bigger thing because, I feel like it's more of a thing where they're trying to see if you can follow directions. Because that's what I've been told. I've been told when they send you the email for the interview and there's a dress code in there, is basically to see if you follow directions. So I'm not mad at that. Because if you get a job and you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing, then they can't really trust you. Now, honestly, I've never been 100% perfect with how to dress when I will go to an interview, but I've always got the job though. So always be aware of that. And make sure when you get to that interview, you hit the interviewer with a firm handshake. This firm handshake thing has been going on for years, centuries, decades. I think decades are smaller than centuries, but you know what I mean. Bro, dads and grandpas think that the difference between getting a job and not getting a job is a firm handshake. And I'm talking about like the sole difference, not like increasing your chances. No, just the sole difference. If you don't give them a firm handshake, you ain't getting a job. If you give a firm handshake, you have to get the job. There's no way you don't get the job. Granted, I'm cool with a firm handshake, but I will say I don't like shaking hands with people who aren't interviewers, because interviewers are actually really good at shaking hands because they do it often. You ever shake hands with a person and they like grip your hand too hard and they just start kind of going up and down real aggressively? That's kind of how like older people shake hands. If you're not expecting it, it might get you by surprise. And I could agree with a firm handshake. Some people have gotten too comfortable with dap ups. Now, granted, if the interviewer like that and he goes straight for a dap up, then that's different. But I've never had an interviewer go for a straight dap up. It's either handshakes or fist pumps. Especially during COVID, it was fist pumps. So you get to an interview, dressed like a stud, get the firm handshake, you're in there. Now you're in the questioning part. And now you might get some questionable questions, something that makes almost barely any sense, but you can see the politics behind it. And that question being, why do you want this job? Something along that aspect. Might be different depending on what you do. But asking me, why do I want this job? That's a good question. Bread. Yeah, that's what I want to say, but you can't say that in an interview. You got to say some very Miss America type of nonsense. Well, I've always had a passion for food, and I think fries and burgers are just a staple of American culture. So that's why I'm applying here at Whataburger. Like any job that isn't paying $90,000 a year shouldn't really be asking too much of why do you want this job. I'd say probably more like 80,000, maybe 70,000. Now, like I said, I understand the politics behind these questions. And then you get a little scenario questions here and there. The scenario questions honestly are the easier ones if you're applying for a job that you know somewhat some area about. Now, granted, most of these that I've been talking about are in-person interviews. If you're doing interviews online or over the phone, that's a completely different story. Just in case anyone's confused about the handshake and dressing. Also, when you're in an interview, you should never act like you know a little more than what you do, because no one really likes to know it all, if we're being honest. And when you are wrong, you look stupid at the end of the day. But yeah, those questions, you just have to give literally the most political answer ever. You be applying to a place, you go to the interview, they ask you, is one of your main reasons for picking this job the pay and the benefits? Oh, of course not. No, what? No, I love working, doing this thing. This is my passion. Like I've always wanted to be a school janitor. Like, of of course, like what kind of question even is that? You know, somewhere in that ballpark. No hate to the school janitors though. Rock with y'all real heavy. One of the mistakes that I almost made that they told me multiple times not to make was not asking questions. Bro, they want you to show literally like a real solid amount of interest. Like even if you just naturally have a nonchalant vibe of how you're going about applying for a job, it's just not gonna work. You can literally write down 10 questions. They will answer all those questions just by talking about the job. You can show them and they'll still want you to ask questions. Because in reality, perception is more important than reality. Because shit really only hits the fan 10% of the time, maybe even less. So even if something is ineffective, everybody just wants it to look like it's nice. So you have to look like you're super interested in this job, even if this is a job that you are taking a pay cut from, and based off your experience, they know you're taking a pay cut from it. Or even if it's a job that you have like 30 years of experience in. Now, granted, I think showing interest and being open to learning about new ways to do things are two completely different things. But like I said, in reality, perception is more important than reality. Trust me. Now, granted, there's experience in there and there's knowledge. I can be the first to admit that the things that I knew at 19 were irrelevant at the things I knew, that I know now. I said that kind of wrong. I remember being 21 and thinking I knew almost everything. So it takes mental maturing at the end of the day. But then we got negotiating pay and things of that nature. Now some jobs will let you negotiate pay. Other jobs have a set pay that everybody either starts off at or everybody has on that job site. Not only am I sometimes scared to negotiate pay, or I used to be scared of negotiating pay, but nowadays some jobs aren't really giving you the opportunity with that. Some people already have a set standard of what they pay everybody, whether it's a start off or whether it's waits on a company raise. I for sure feel like I've been super lowballed before by an offer. But if I look into it and I'm like, you know what, I'll be making more than my job that I have now if I, work a little more, and there's automatic yearly raises. I look into things like that and then I'm like, boom, you know what, let's do it. So that's always something to look into when you're thinking about doing that. Other than that, I don't have much else to say to y'all boys. Appreciate you for watching this long if you made it to the end of the video. Like, comment, subscribe. I can't talk today. Appreciate you. Deuce.